There's breaking news. There are reports right now that the Biden administration, the U.S., is going to sanction Cuba officials following the attacks on the protesters. This is all coming out right now. I believe it's a report we have in front of me from the Washington Post saying that the Biden administration will announce new sanctions today against a number of Cuban officials deemed directly involved in human rights abuses during a government crackdown on widespread protests earlier this month.
What we're hearing from this report, which, as you pointed out, Washington Post was the first to break. Now it's starting to find its way into other media sources, that they're going to impose these sanctions on specific small number of individuals from Cuba's interior ministry and military forces. So the question is, how small of a number is it? Is it not a proportional response to their crackdown on what was the largest and really the first mass protest in about 60 years in Cuba? So we're going to see how this plays out. And there are a lot of details that are going to start coming out throughout the day. But there's also been reports that he's going to seek measures to help restore internet to Cuba and things that we had been talking about earlier in this week.
I do think it's too late, Logan. I mean, I think it was apparent days ago that action was needed by the Biden administration. I would tell you, just sort of on a top level, I think it's good that there is movement coming out of this, but I would ask the secondary questions. I would go even maybe a little bit further than Will did. I think the sanctions are an acknowledgement that more is needed from the United States, and I would say on two fronts. I mean, I think it's ironclad proof that the administration needs to do things tangible to stand with the demonstrators. We've talked before about getting the internet turned on. I think that is something that should be at the very top of the list. And then second, Logan, I think it's ironclad proof that people that are fleeing Cuba coming to the United States probably have about the best asylum claim that there is, and yet this administration has said they're not going to consider it. So look, I think it's good news. I don't know how good. We'll have to see the details, but it's proof that some of these secondary actions are needed.
When it comes to Cuba, which is really right on our shores, and we know the country well, and we know their habits well, and we know the communist regime that controls that country well. I don't understand why, when people are in the streets and they're getting attacked, that our government doesn't act faster. We've got to be able to be timely with the sanctions. Otherwise, they just don't work.
Yeah, there's a brand new blog on our website called Cuba and the Cry for Freedom, and Wes Smith, who wrote that blog, is sitting here right next to us. Give us a little bit of a rundown of what this is and why people should go take a look at it.
Yeah. You know, this is a rare opportunity, both for the Cuban people and for the United States of America. The Cuban people, unlike other countries in Latin America, they have never demonstrated. They've never come out in mass demonstrations demanding freedom. Part of the reason for this is that the other countries in Latin America have been, somewhat free, somewhat democratic, and then over the last 10, 15 years have gradually become authoritarian kind of governments of the people. So them protesting, they remember what democracy is like. Most of the Cuban people have lived under the Castro regime all of their lives. For them to say enough is enough and to come out in mass demonstrations to risk torture, imprisonment, even being executed to do that is an unprecedented thing. And that's part of what's going on here. And we're talking about the president and these new sanctions. My problem, much like Than's, with what President Biden has done, is that his response thus far has been tepid and very measured. This is not the time to be tepid and measured. He needs to be, unequivocal in his support of the people who are demanding freedom in Cuba. And part of that equivocation that I see, the hesitation on the president's part, is that he has not expressly countered the contentions by people like Bernie Sanders and AOC and others in the last 2 weeks who have actually come out in support of the Cuban regime, saying that it's one of the most equitable and fair countries in the Western Hemisphere, which is a blatant lie. They brag on the Cuban regime. When people who are part of the Democrat Party do that kind of thing, the president needs to come out and flat out reject those kinds of contentions and arguments. And thus far, he's not done that.
There's a huge part of the political American population right now who feels like they're in support of these policies. Well, I think it's important for us to take a look at that idea, which is true, by the way. That's certainly happening in college campuses and around the country right now. And to amplify what it looks like in Cuba, to amplify how the people are responding, not only how the people are responding, the conditions they're living in, the problems that are having. You said, let's say, the best paid military. These are things that are specific issues that if we can then elevate and showcase what's happening and what happens when you get these kind of politicians in office. And when you freely, not through a revolution, when you freely elect people with these point of views, the blame is going to be on you, not on, the oppressive regime that came to power. It came to power because you decided it sounded nice. Because, the general socialism idea, communism idea, I think a lot of people go, in general, that sounds nice, it should be fair. But then when you see the harsh realities of it, it's a little bit different.